This is CG Ruthless Sports. I will be brutally honest. Ain't nothing but being brutally honest. Coming at you with another video.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome NFL content creator Alex Rollins. What's up, man?
Hey, CG, how's it going, man? How you doing?
Doing great, man. Tell everybody where they can find you on social media platform.
Yeah, my name is Alex Rollins NFL on YouTube, on Twitter. I even have a TikTok, and I make film breakdowns to try and kind of bridge the gap between what we're seeing on, on TV and then compared to what's really happening and some of the coverage aspects and some of the things that we hear about from the broadcasters or whatever, and really trying to just get a better idea of what's really happening on the field and just bridging the gap.
Yeah, I like how you do your content. You do a lot of breakdowns on all 32 teams the way it seems like. But what really caught my attention was the Trey Lance videos. Like it just was like the way you were critiquing it and then the way you were showing the videos about it, that kind of stood out to me. And then you had a guest like Kurt Warner on your show also, which is like amazing accomplishment, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the kind words, and I'm always trying to give an authentic take, and I really take a lot of time to study the film and find both positives and negatives if both are there, and try and really be honest. I don't have any sort of agenda and pushing, Jimmy G, Trey Lance, any of these guys. I just really want to talk to the fans and show what I've seen on film and try and give them the best, most authentic take possible, and really just show what is. Football's a very complicated game, and I think it gets lost in translation when we're watching on TV, and there's not a lot of time in between plays to really break down what cover 3 is or the bingo concept or things like that. So that's really what my channel's there for, and just to give the best authentic takes possible.
Yeah, it is. And what really kind of got you to critique a little bit on Trey Lance? Like when I saw your videos, there was different, like what you were putting your breakdowns on, and you can give the audience more of an explanation of what you were preferring to on Trey Lance's strength and weakness.
Yeah, for sure. So I saw, obviously physically he's very imposing, right? He's strong. He has the big arm. He's athletic. I was a little bit worried. I was very bullish on his athleticism coming out of college, and I was very excited about that. And his numbers were explosive. I believe he had 15 rushing touchdowns in his last full year in college. One of the weaknesses, though, and I'll kind of jump back and forth because those weren't just all the strengths, but I was very surprised at watching him run as much as he did and all the designed runs that Shanahan installed for him. I was surprised how he wasn't quite as explosive as I was anticipating. I didn't see him necessarily breaking away from guys. I saw him use his physicality, and we did see that back in college, but I wasn't as impressed with how he was really pulling away from people. And I think we did see the speed in college, and maybe that had to do more with the types of athletes that he was playing against in a different conference and division. But we didn't really see that, at least yet, in the NFL, and it just didn't really pop up on tape. But back to the strengths, that was just kind of a quick aside. When everything looked good for him in terms of him playing within the pocket, playing within structure, things looked very, very good. I think it was easy to project him as a very good quarterback when looking at certain plays. It wasn't there were things where there were times where he was able to execute pre-snap. And I think Shanahan started, even though he just played 2.5 games, I think Shanahan really did start to slowly put more and more on his plate, with the check with me's, with the can calls and whatnot, and audibling and things like that. And then post snap too, it wasn't super often, but there were glimmers of times where he was able to manipulate a defender with his eyes, or see safeties rotating after the snap, and things where Shanahan couldn't necessarily keep the training wheels on all the time, and Trey was able at times to play very well in those situations. So I think that was very exciting. When I'm looking at more of the negatives, there were some things that were there in college, just here and there. Back to the running point from just a minute ago, he got the absolute crap kicked out of him. Like, he was not able to protect himself. I think that's kind of the issue we see with some of these running quarterbacks at a college who are more physical rather than a straight burner. I think I'm gonna bring up RG3 later in the episode, or in this conversation. But RG3 was just a straight burner. He'd get around the edge and just fly down the field. And I think Trey has a lot of speed, but in college he was more of a run a guy over type of quarterback and type of runner. And I think we saw that he still is playing in that same fashion in the NFL. And against the Texans, he took a couple of big hits. That Seahawks game, when he came in the middle, I mean, he didn't have a lot of time to necessarily prepare and whatnot, but he was taking some monster hits. And in the Cardinals game, we saw him get injured very quickly. He maybe should have gotten knocked out of that game. He did finish the game, but it was worrisome. At the end of the day, we do need our quarterback to be playing the full 17 games every year. And right off the bat, in the first game and a half or whatever, he was knocked out, unfortunately. I am a little bit worried about some of the consistency with his accuracy. A little thing that popped up on his college film: Shanahan loves to run these little bootlegs with off play action, where he'll have receivers coming across, so Trey will fake to the left, then come back to the right. And Trey in college and in his film, he would just miss these really easy little layup throws to his right, where he's on the run, so he's not totally set and whatnot, and he would just dirt these balls that were just complete layups and gimmies, and very, very surprising to see, but something that you would expect him to work through. And then there was a couple times where he just misused check in the flat, or he threw it really low. It looks like he's not quite as comfortable just really going through his motion and really just kind of letting her rip on those. So maybe it's just a repetition type thing. But that was worrisome, because that's such a big part of Shanahan's offense, and just hitting those consistent move the chain type of plays, just getting the ball to the flat quickly, turn around right away, he's wide open, get him the ball, and whatnot. So that was a little bit worrisome. And I think lastly, just some of the antsiness in the pocket. I think I just put something up on Twitter about this, where I think not even just Trey, but a lot of these younger quarterbacks, it's tricky because these guys are so athletic and so have such unbelievable ability to run the ball. But we see that there's kind of a give and take, where that part of their game is kind of tugging on being able to sit in the pocket and read the field and get through not just your second progression, but your 3 and 4 progressions, where for Trey's entire life, he's been able to just run out of the pocket and break a tackle and run some poor little high school over and just break an 80-yard run, and he's a god for the rest of the day. But now we're seeing guys in the NFL who are as fast as him. We're seeing defensive tackles who are able to run him down. So that's an issue just in terms of breaking the pocket. But then also, I really do think Shanahan got him to really develop the drop back passing game, and Trey's going to need to sit in the pocket to develop. That's really how a quarterback develops. Right now, if the pressure is closing in, his answer is to leave. If his first read isn't open, he's saying, all right, I'm going to leave the pocket with my legs. This has worked my whole life. Whereas to develop as a quarterback over time, even if it's good in the short term to run around and pick up some yards, you need to figure out ways to sit in the pocket, move around the pocket while staying within the tackles and within the pocket, and getting to that third or fourth read. And that's how a quarterback develops. So there were times where, definitely in the Texans game, you see one read to the left, he doesn't like it, he takes off and runs. those are the things where I'll be really watching, and I think all of us as fans can really be watching to see definitively if he's made that next step, just even through this offseason into week one. Is he sitting in the pocket, sitting there after 2-3 seconds? If there's no pressure, is he comfortable just sitting in there and really getting, either if it's just a check down or hitting a dig over the middle, things like that? That's really where I'm looking to see how Trey does through this offseason and into the next year.
Yeah, it's just like the way you're saying, like he needs to know how to protect his body, because if he doesn't slide, he has to learn how to slide better. But then you said the arm mechanics and all that stuff. Like I think this offseason, I think he's kind of trained a little bit better on his accuracy a little bit. That was the only question mark. Was last year he was like, what is it, 57% of completions or something like that, and then he had like 5 touchdowns, 2 picks, but that was limited, like 2.5 game samples he played. But are we too soon to judge him by what the other analysts are saying? Because a lot of the analysts are just writing this kid down. And it's just like, I don't get it. It's 2.5 game samples. Are we too soon to judge the guy or what?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. 2.5 game sample size, that's nothing. I think maybe part of the issue is I think there was a general feeling coming into last year that Jimmy's going to play a little bit. Trey isn't ready to start day one, and then Trey's going to come in week 4, week 5, and then this is going to be Trey's team. And we just didn't really see that, right? It didn't. He looked good in ways, but not necessarily like the starter that the Niners needed him to. And he didn't take over the team, and he didn't really. It didn't feel like Shanahan really had a lot of confidence in him. So I've always been very confident in Kyle Shanahan's ability to create an offense, design an offense, install an offense, call plays, just all of it. So I think right now, if Trey was on more of an average offense or just more of a run-of-the-mill offense, if you will, I think I would be more worried about him. But in terms of what Shanahan has as a play caller, his history, and then also the weapons around Trey are incredible. I mean, this is maybe, you could argue, a top 5, top 10 group with Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, hopefully Debo, definitely Debo. So I think just kind of the floor that Shanahan can give him, I think with the type of quarterback Trey is, the bottom could fall out if he was on, I'm not trying to throw a team under the bus, but if he was in Justin Fields' situation or Trevor Lawrence or something like that, I think there would be a lot more cause for concern because he is so raw, and because of the things we saw last year where there's not a ton of confidence just in terms of the stability of his game. But with what Shanahan is able to do, and even with backup quarterbacks, with Mullins or whoever, he's able to create an offense. Excuse me. He's able to create an offense where he can create a floor and at least a baseline for just about any quarterback to do pretty dang well in the NFL, as we've seen. So it's very soon to write Trey off. I think there is legitimate cause for worry, but to write him off going to year 2 and with this team and with Shanahan and these weapons, I think is a little silly.
Yeah, it is. But like you just said, it's a good argument. Like if he was in a terrible situation like the Bears and then you said the Jaguars and Texans, I think it would be kind of a concern, but he's in a good situation to succeed. And I don't think Shanahan will just throw him out there just for the heck of it. He invested this kid. So having him learn under the bench with Jimmy for that 1 year, that should do him wonders. But when you look at it this way, he should be able to have an understanding of the playbook by now, because he's already into year 2 now. So he's going to learn this playbook. This would be kind of like his rookie season, right?
Yeah, definitely. And Trey was very smart coming out of college. I think that's one thing where you're worried about a rookie quarterback, and especially one who's played as little as him, is a guy who gets overwhelmed, right? So it's not even necessarily can they make the throws, can they run the ball. It's he has so much to think about compared to in college that he's just overwhelmed. He has too much he's thinking about at the line, and he can't even make reads. He's thinking about how many steps he has to take, where his hots are, where his alert is, and whatnot. So we saw Trey able to adjust protections in college. There was a report, I believe it was from his quarterback coach, Quincy Avery, who said that he was even going up to the line, changing the concepts to each side and changing the protection. So he was pretty much mastering things at the line. He was able to go in during the meeting room during the week, and he was dictating how practices would go, what the game plan was going to look like, and that just even at a college level. And there were times on the field that we saw, and I did mention this in my video, where he's able to. We all know that Kyle, a lot of quarterbacks take a second year. Their first year isn't as good. Matt Ryan, we kind of saw this with Aaron Rodgers. It kind of takes a second year for these guys to really master things. And a lot of that is stuff at the line where Trey not only needs to get the Niners offense into the right passing play, but the right running play and making sure they're not running towards an unblocked overhang or an unblocked safety or things like that. And he was able in the Texans game to go to what Shanahan calls his can calls, which is where Shanahan gives two plays. Whenever you see Jimmy or Trey tapping the sides of their helmet, that's where Shanahan gives them two plays in the huddle. And based off what they see at right when they get to the line, they can, which means they check to maybe it was a pass play first, maybe they say two high safeties, so they can to a run play and are able to switch the Niners into the right call. And so even if they do switch into a run play and they run the ball and it does well, that won't show up on Trey's stat sheet necessarily, but Shanahan doesn't care about his stats per se. He needs to know that Trey is able to run this offense. And so I think knowing that we've seen those things so far, even just in his rookie year, I think we can evaluate and see that Trey is a plus individual mentally from the quarterback perspective, and that he is able to do those things already. And as you said, with him learning the playbook, getting very comfortable with it. Hey, man, I have Kyle Shanahan's playbook, and this thing is like freaking Spanish, man. So he has to learn another language, and that's just even in an offseason. Now he's just taking time. He doesn't have to think about everything he's saying. It just comes out naturally. He's anticipating play calls. And so I think from a mental perspective, we see that is a strength with him. And now he will be that much more comfortable, and he can just go out and ball.
Yeah, he could. And plus, building that chemistry with the receivers during this offseason and including working out with George Kittle during this tight end university kind of pays huge dividends for him. So, and then the teammates giving him the confidence, and Shanahan's already having confidence in him. That should speak volume for Trey to not feel concerned. Like, he should feel more confident instead of just, he doesn't care about what people think about him. So he's just worried about satisfying the team and just go from there. And I like his attitude. Like, when you saw his press conference, was it kind of interesting how he stood out and didn't care what anybody thought of him?
Yeah, I mean, I think you want every individual athlete, whoever it is, to really feel that confidence. And I think it's so easy today with everybody on Twitter or whatever talking about you a million times over, and some of the venom you get in the DMs or whatever. It's important for these guys to really be strong and have a strong character and show that they don't care what people who, media members or people like myself. I wouldn't expect Trey to watch any of my stuff and then make changes by any means. So it's people in the building are the ones who matter. And it seems like Trey knows that. And he knows that there is a lot of pressure on him. There's a lot of pressure on all these guys, but I think especially him going into year two. And it seems like he's ready to meet that challenge.
Without a doubt, he is. And I think just the fact that he's already feeling comfortable with this offense, it's going to boost up momentum for him. But I think the criticism towards him is it's only 2.5 games, maybe just because he only played like 17 career starts in college, and that's how people look at him. He's raw. He's kind of like another guy coming out of North Dakota State that everybody keeps assuming, like, Carson Wentz came from the same college. And then you say guys like Josh Allen came from a smaller college, and they just talk about how it didn't translate, but then they end up being pretty good. If Carson Wentz were to stay healthy, I think he would have been pretty good too.
Yeah, I mean, he should have won that MVP 2017. I mean, he was the reason why the Eagles got, well, not the reason they got to the Super Bowl, but they did have home field advantage for a reason. He was playing out of his mind. we don't have to go on a whole Carson Wentz thing, but he was a type of guy who's in a way similar to Trey, where he's not going through all of his progressions, but he's able to extend the play. Not as good a runner as Trey was or Trey is, but he was able to extend the play with his legs and then make an off schedule throw. And I think that was where he really was separating himself. And then he tore the ACL, and then things kind of, more or less fell apart a little bit there. So, but yeah, no, it's things. The college game, studying film for college and studying film for the NFL, it's two completely different games. The speed of the game, how much you have to prepare, it's watching it. There's a stark contrast, and it's a lot to go from a rookie quarterback, go from college to a rookie quarterback, and then really master the game.
It is, because that's how he's gonna. It's because the speed of the game, the NFL level is a lot faster than college, and Trey's already starting to learn about it. Like the situation that he's going through, some people are comparing it more like the Mahomes and Alex Smith situation. Do you agree or disagree on that, or?
Yeah, I mean, Smith played for a year and the Mahomes sat, so I guess in that regard it's pretty similar. But I don't know what exactly do you mean?
Like sitting and learning, and just the talent alone, the raw talent. Like everybody was talking about how Mahomes was raw talent coming out of Texas Tech, and how he was able to benefit sitting on the bench for 1 year with Alex Smith and learning under Andy Reid's offense.
Yeah, I for any quarterback, I think it's important to, as I said, it's learning that other language and not having to think about all the little technicalities in the play, but just knowing the play, feeling comfortable with it, spinning it out in the huddle, and just going and playing, and not having to be bogged down by what am I going to do if this happens or this happens or this happens, and just letting it come free. That's really what's important.
Yeah, it is. But does having a Jimmy Garoppolo in his first year benefit him by learning under him, or just kind of like whatsoever?
Yeah, I think it definitely does. I think watching what Jimmy play as a pro, and how he carried himself, and how I think Jimmy's leadership is really undervalued, and he was able to help create this culture where the Niners were able to go to 2 NFC championships in 3 years. And there's a lot of hate towards Jimmy for just his style of play and some of his statistics, and some of the I think when things go bad for Jimmy, they just look really bad, and some of his mistakes are horrible. But at the end of the day, he was able to. You can't just find any quarterback who maybe has the same stat line as Jimmy and just plug him in, and the Niners are still going to 2 NFC championships. So I think watching Jimmy, not just as a player, but as the way he conducts himself in the media and in the locker room, I think those things are really important for Trey too.
Yeah, the fact that Jimmy Garoppolo was being a true leader and then reached out to him after he got drafted speaks volume. Unlike Ryan Tannehill, which he didn't say much about Malik Willis, which I don't know what kind of leader I would have right there, but it seems to me Jimmy took it pretty well, and he didn't just throw a guy under the bus like Ryan Tannehill did, which I don't understand. But like, you feel like competition, it should bring the best out of all quarterbacks, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, the fact that it shouldn't just, like, for some players, they should handle it and be professional and help an individual instead of putting one player under the bus. I never understood Ryan Tannehill's issue with that. He could have at least approached it differently. You think, or no?
I think that was overblown. Honestly, I think it was not that he was misquoted, but I think what he was trying to get at, when somebody's asked a very specific question, they do have to answer it. And I think the way he was asked it, I think he told the truth, which I do respect. And I don't think that the narrative that him and Malik are going to get into the same room and Malik's going to ask him a question, he's going to be like, dude, get out of here. I don't think that's the case. I think just Tannehill's not going to overly go out of his way to, go to his house and sit down with him until midnight and quiz him on the playbook. So I do think it's a little overblown. I think Tannehill's a good leader. He's had a lot of success. So I'm not too worried about that, and I think it's a non-issue, honestly.
Yeah, it should be. But for the final answer for this conclusion, so do you really feel like if Jimmy sticks around, do you think this will divide the locker room or no?
Um, I do. I think there's definitely the possibility of that. As I was just saying, Jimmy does have such a strong presence in that locker room, and they've achieved so much with him. And I think it'd be very challenging to get to, let's say, a big time Monday night game or a big time game against the Rams or whatever, and Trey maybe missteps in some way that Jimmy wouldn't, or Trey makes a throw on and it gets picked off. If Jimmy's just sitting right there has to be some guys in the locker room. It's human nature to not think to yourself, wow, like Jimmy's right there. Like he wouldn't have made that issue. If some guys, I mean, everybody wants to win every game, and every player in the Niners wants to go to the Super Bowl. If there's just even a little bit of a feeling that, oh, Trey is not where he needs to be this year, because let's be honest, playing Trey now, which they should, it's not, in my opinion, if you're trying to win the Super Bowl this year, you keep Jimmy Garoppolo. You play Jimmy Garoppolo. But they shouldn't. I'm not saying they should. I'm just saying that Trey Lance is for the present, but also for the future. And so if Jimmy is still in the locker room and you see him right there as a Niners player, and Trey just makes a little rookie mistake in a big moment, which he will, and that's okay, it would be very hard to not want to then look and say, oh, Jimmy's on our team. We could just plug him in next week. Why are we doing this? What's up with the plan? We want to win Super Bowls right now. So I think there would be some issues unless Trey just completely balled the heck out, which is certainly possible. But I think there will be some younger quarterback growing pains this year where that wouldn't necessarily be the case.
Yeah, I expect growing pains with Trey Lance. Like he only played 2.5 games, but he should be able to have his ups and downs season. So like for us 49ers fans, we should be able to know that he's going to have his moments. He's going to have his interceptions. He's going to have his little fumble moments at times. But as long as he gets better throughout the season, that's all that matters. If you just keep this guy on the bench for this coming season, what's it going to do for the guy? I get that Aaron Rodgers benefited too, but this is a different era. Patrick Mahomes, they only took him 1 year to just learn this offense, and then he just excelled the next season. So that's the only thing I look at.
Yeah, I mean, you just can't. I think such a big part of the trade to get Trey was the rookie contract, and I think it's okay. We have the first 5 years. It's okay to not waste the first year, but it's okay to do what the Chiefs did with Mahomes for the first year. But the second year, they're paying him a lot of money. A part of it was, okay, we're gonna load up everyone around him. We're gonna create a great roster because we don't have to pay Trey as much as a Rodgers or a Josh Allen or these guys who get a bazillion dollars. But on the second year of doing that, you're kind of losing that advantage. You're not getting Trey on the rookie contract because then you'd have to pay, or you're not getting him on the discount. I mean, because you're also having to pay Jimmy to start and then Trey to sit on the bench. So a lot of this trade was financial, not that they didn't like the player that Trey was or Trey is. A lot of it was financial though, and so it would just be a big mistake, and it's something the Niners know they can't do. They're trying to get rid of Jimmy. They'll get rid of him at some point. They just haven't been able to yet. So it's very much Trey's team, and he is going to start this year, and that's that. Yeah, that's that.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I thank you for being on the show, man. I like what you do on your breakdowns and all the narrative stuff, man. Despite if anybody disagrees with what you say, bro, I respect what you do because you do great breakdowns. So it's like I get to learn a lot of different stuff of what you put. Like when you put a defensive line, talk about their breakdown plays, or a quarterback, like the way you were doing with Trey Lance, you learn a lot of different stuff, and you're pretty smart, man.
Oh, well, thank you, man. I really appreciate that. And thank you so much for having me on. And I appreciate what you just said. And I love talking ball. And I did a lot of Niners film breakdowns in the past during the Super Bowl years. So they always have a special place in my heart. And I'm rooting for Trey. And I hope for all of San Francisco and the Bay Area that he does his thing and improves on some of the issues that we've talked about and just gets that ring, baby. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to give you the solo, and then you can have your final say, and then we can end on a high note.
All right.
Yeah, I'm right here.
What's happening?
Oh, my bad. No, I'm right here. You can say what you want, man. My bad.
What was the question?
No, like your solo. You can just put like a solo intro or just say your final. Never mind. My bad, man. No, I was just going to give you like the solo of just saying bye to the audience or whatever. And then maybe down the road we can catch up again.
Okay. Well, yeah. Thank you. Thank you to everybody. I'm looking forward to watching the Niners this year and watching if Trey is able to really take that next step and excel in Shanahan's system. And I think there's a lot riding on it, and there's a lot of pressure, but Shanahan's one of the best, and Trey's has a lot of tools. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to do.
Yeah, for sure, man. And as always, CG Ruthless Sports and Alex Rollins is out, and see you guys later.